Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Facebook Live event on COVID, housing, and health, your legal questions answered. Hola y a todos y bienvenidos al evento en vivo de Facebook de hoy sobre COVID, vivienda y salud, sus preguntas legales respondidas. Para una traducción en español en vivo, haga clic en el enlace de español que se encuentra abajo en el chat. This Facebook Live event is brought to you by the Springfield Healthy Homes Collaborative, Arise for Social Justice, and Community Legal Aid. We want to thank Steve Carey and Brendan Holland from Focus Springfield, who is managing and hosting the event on their Facebook page and website, and Hector Figarella, who is translating this event in Spanish. Thank you all. Before we get started, I'm going to have the team quickly introduce themselves, what organization they're from, and what they do. Then we'll go over what to expect for today's session. So I will start with myself. My name is Shirley Rodriguez. I work for the Public Health Institute of Western Mass as a project coordinator for Springfield Healthy Homes and 413 Cares. Springfield Healthy Homes is a citywide collaboration of community partners and stakeholders from multiple sectors who've gotten together to address health issues faced by residents due to poor housing conditions. And 413 Cares is an online community resource database that shares free or reduced cost programs available to residents in Western Mass. So let's go ahead and introduce the other folks who are joining us on this live event. We have Sarita Hudson from the Public Health Institute of Western Mass. She is our Director of Programs and Development. She is in the background taking the questions. We have Jane Edmondson, who will go ahead and introduce herself now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jane Edmondstone. I'm an attorney at Community Legal Aid, where I represent tenants. Community Legal Aid is a nonprofit law firm that serves low-income residents of Western and Central Massachusetts. And I look forward to speaking more later about your rights during COVID-19.
Thank you, Jane. We have Claudia Quintero from Community Legal Aid as well. She'll introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Quintero. I'm a staff attorney at Central West Justice Center, affiliate of Community Legal Aid. Like Attorney Edmondstone said before me, we provide free legal services across Central and Western Massachusetts. And I'm happy to be here to provide more information about your rights during COVID-19. So thank you for having us.
We have Liz Busey.
Hi, I'm Liz Busey. I'm the Housing and Economic Justice Organizer at Arise. We're the local poor people's organization since 1985. We want to make sure that poor people don't get forgotten.
Thank you, Liz. And last but not least, we have Tatiana Cheeks. And Tatiana is in the background, and she will be taking your calls as well. She is the, oh, I think she's unmuted. Okay, we'll see if Tatiana can introduce herself later, but she's ready to go. Okay. All right, so then we're gonna continue on. Jane and Claudia, who are from the Community Legal Aid, will both have 10 minutes to speak. While they are presenting, you will have the opportunity to submit your questions, whether in Spanish or English, in the chat. At the end of both their presentations, we'll have some time to answer those questions. So let's get started, shall we? Jane, the cameras are rolling on you.
Hello, everyone, again. So as Shirley said, I'll talk for a little bit and then I'll answer questions at the end. Your questions, if you have them, should be general without providing specific details about your personal situation, as we are live in public. If after the presentation is over, you feel like you are have a specific housing situation or emergency where you need the help of a lawyer, there will be information about how to apply for help from my office, and then we can follow up with you separately. So today I'm going to talk about the new eviction and foreclosure moratorium laws, and also how to access the housing court if you have an emergency and need help right now. First, I'll talk about the new laws. Massachusetts passed recently a new law which protects people from losing their housing during this COVID-19 crisis. And these protections are in effect until August 18th of this year, or 45 days after the governor says that the current state of emergency is over, whichever is sooner. So that doesn't precisely tell us when it's over, but it will be a few weeks, if not months from now. The governor also has the right to extend these protections if he feels that that's necessary past those dates. I'll first talk about evictions. Most eviction cases in Massachusetts are temporarily stopped. And this means that all stages of an eviction, from the beginning to the end, are stopped. So a landlord cannot send you a notice to quit, which is the eviction letter telling you that you need to leave your apartment. You should not be getting any notices to terminate your tenancy. A landlord cannot file an eviction case in the housing court against you. A landlord cannot get a judgment against you if a case is filed in the housing court, either by agreement or by a judge. And if all those things had already happened before the moratorium, the last piece of an eviction cannot happen right now, which is the part where the sheriff comes and moves you out. So no one should be getting any 48-hour notices from a sheriff saying that you have to vacate your housing. There are exceptions for emergency evictions. A landlord can take these steps to evict you if you did something that puts other people in danger. Under the new law, this is called an essential eviction. So again, non-essential evictions are stopped, right? Non-essential evictions are evictions for non-payment of rent, evictions for no reason at all, evictions where a landlord has a business reason for wanting you to leave. But those essential evictions, the evictions where the landlord is saying that a tenant did something that impacts the health and safety of someone else, those evictions can get into court. Notices can be served, eviction cases can be filed. Ultimately, it's always up to a judge to decide whether you need to leave your house as a tenant, right? But the eviction case can be filed. Sometimes there are other fixes. The court can order a tenant to stop doing the things that are causing problems for other people. The court buildings are physically closed, as people may know, until at least June 1st, but the judges and the staff are still working. They're still available for the public. If something occurs, which is urgent, either an eviction or otherwise, and people need to access the court is operating virtually, as we all are now, mainly telephonically, meaning mainly you'll communicate with the court by phone. So no one should be attempting to go to any courthouse right now. And I'll talk a little bit later about how to access the court if you do need to access the court in an emergency. So let's talk about rent. So even though a landlord cannot start an eviction case right now, if a tenant's not paying rent, tenants still have a legal responsibility to pay the rent and follow the lease, right? So an eviction moratorium, a pause on the court cases, is not the same as a rent freeze or a stop on your responsibility to pay rent. Which means once the crisis is over and the moratorium is lifted, a landlord could start an eviction for unpaid rent. There are some protections around rent. However, if you are unable to pay your rent because of COVID-19, you've lost income, you're laid off from your job, there are certain things that a landlord cannot do. The landlord can't charge late fees for the unpaid rent, can't report the unpaid rent to a credit agency. So this provides some protection during this time. In order to get those rent protections, you need to give your landlord written proof that you suffered a financial loss because of COVID-19. For example, you used to pay your rent from your income that you got from your job, but you can no longer work because your job is closed or schools are closed. And that information has to be given to your landlord every month that it's true. So if it's true for May, it must be done for May. If it's true for June, again, it must also be done in June during that month. So for May, that's due during May. If you happen to live in subsidized housing where your rent is based on the amount of your income and you've lost income, please remember that you can get your rent adjusted so that it's lower and affordable. And even if the physical office of your housing authority or voucher administrator is closed, there are ways that you can reach them. You can call them on the phone, you can email them to send in your documents to have your rent be adjusted. There are also some foreclosure protections for people who own their homes. And these apply to homeowners who live in their homes that are 1 to 4 units, so smaller buildings. So this law says that if you are a homeowner, you can ask the lender or the bank to pause your mortgage payments and enter into a mortgage forbearance program if you can show that your income has been affected by COVID-19. That program can last for up to 6 months. And during that time, any fees, penalties, and interest should not be accruing. And the missed payments, right, the ones that you're kind of pausing, those will be attached to the end of the loan, right? They wouldn't be due all at once the crisis is over. During forbearance, your lender should not make any negative remarks to any credit reporting agency. So in order to get those protections, you have to communicate directly with the lender or the bank. And as I mentioned previously, there may be tenants who are interested or need to physically to access the court, even though the court is physically closed. For instance, maybe the landlord locked you out and you can't get into your apartment, or maybe your heat and hot water does not work and the landlord won't fix it. Those are the type of emergencies that the court is still available to help with. If you have an emergency like this, you can certainly call the court. For the Springfield area, the housing court phone number is 413-748-7838. There are a number of things you can do before you call the court. You can talk to your landlord directly and say, these are the problems that I have. Please fix them. If you don't fix them, I am going to reach out to the housing court. So it's always good to try to stay in communication with your landlord. If you have a situation like a lockout or an illegal eviction, the police can help in those situations sometimes. The police and the sheriffs are very knowledgeable about landlord-tenant laws and know that a landlord should not be attempting to evict you without using the court process. And sometimes that can help de-escalate the situation. Also, if you're facing any one of these emergencies, you are welcome to reach out to my office, Community Legal Aid, to get legal assistance and advice about how to handle the situation. If you do contact the court with an emergency, the court staff there will work with you to get your case filed. If you don't have access to a computer or paper or printer, the court has been wonderful and the staff there have been wonderful in helping people be able to kind of tell them orally on the phone what's happening, and they'll convert that into a written complaint. They will help you figure out how to give notice and have your landlord served with whatever paperwork is necessary. And then they'll schedule a time for you to talk to the judge, and you will call in like a conference call on a certain day at a certain time to explain to the court why you need help during COVID-19. So that's all I'll say about general information, but I'm certainly open and available throughout this training to answer the questions at the end. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jane, so much for your presentation. Now we're going to hand it over to Claudia.
Hi, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about unemployment benefits and just the general guidance or general what you should know about unemployment benefits. So when you are applying for unemployment benefits, there are a couple things to keep in mind. You have to meet two requirements, and the first of that requirement is being able and available to work and having a valid work authorization in the United States. What that means is that you need to be either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident or have some sort of legal status in the country that authorizes you to work legally in the United States. And while you were working, whatever work authorization you had to be valid, not expired. So to be able and available to work, that really just means in the context of COVID-19 that work, once COVID-19 ends, you should be able to return to work, barring any other issues that might arise. So if you're able and available to work, you should be eligible to apply for unemployment. When you apply for unemployment, you can apply online through their UI online system. And it's easier if you apply online, but we understand that there are some people who, for language capabilities or technology capabilities, can't apply online. You can apply via phone. DTA has the Department of Unemployment Assistance, DUA, has a form that can be filled out at the mass.gov website where you can ask for a call back to apply via telephone. If you're having a hard time with that, Community Legal Aid is also working with volunteers to help people apply for unemployment assistance during this time. And so you can also call our hotline and ask for help applying for unemployment. The online system is only in English, and that makes it kind of difficult to be able to navigate if you don't speak English or read English. And you can apply using a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer, but you can't upload documents that the Department of Unemployment Assistance might ask for, or read documents that the Department of Unemployment Assistance might send to you in your inbox through a smartphone or a tablet. Right now, that's only accessible via a computer. And finally, should you have any difficulties applying, for example, if you apply and you're denied benefits and you feel that DUA was wrong, you should consider filing an appeal. You only have 10 days to file an appeal from a decision that the Department of Unemployment makes. And so you want to be able to file your appeal timely so you don't lose that benefit. And so you might want to file your appeal first and then call us to help you with your appeal hearing afterwards, or you could just call us once you get a denial, and we can help you with that going forward. If you apply for unemployment benefits and you are found eligible, you should continue to certify every week. And certification days on Sundays, you can certify with a smartphone or a tablet or a computer. You can also certify via telephone. You don't want to forget to do that, because if you do, you won't get paid. If you're found eligible for unemployment, you should start receiving unemployment benefits pretty quickly. Massachusetts has waived the 1 week waiting period. Usually outside of COVID-19 circumstances, you'd have to wait a week before you received unemployment benefits. That waiting week has been waived. And so you should start receiving benefits as quickly, as soon as you're found eligible. You also are waived from having to show that you've been looking for work. I mean, you should continue to look for work, but as long as you're unemployed because of COVID-19, or, most people are going to be okay. If you start receiving benefits as part of the CARES Act that was passed in March 27th of this year, you will also receive an additional $600 on top of the money that you are receiving for unemployment. What that means is that if you're receiving even $1 of unemployment, you will receive the $600 additionally on top of that $1 a week for every week that you're unemployed, beginning, and for some people, it already has, the payment has already come through, and it's retroactive to March 29th, 2020, up until July 25th, 2020. So for any of those weeks that you are getting unemployment benefits, you will get $600 per week. The maximum that you can receive is $823 a week. Usually the average weekly wage that you'll get in your benefit check is about 50% of your weekly wage. And you can get an additional $25 per dependent, up to half of the amount of your unemployment check. And so just know, though, that the most that you could receive in a week is $823. That's the maximum benefit. For folks who are not eligible for unemployment for those of you who are not eligible for unemployment under the state laws, the CARES Act also expanded benefits for people who usually are not entitled to unemployment benefits. So under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance through the CARES Act, you can receive unemployment benefits if you are a self-employed worker, an independent contractor, a freelancer, a gig worker, if you work for a church or a religious institution, if you don't have enough wages to qualify for unemployment benefits. If typically you wouldn't qualify under the state unemployment benefit program, you might qualify under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program through the CARES Act. And for those folks, the application is now opened. It opened on April 20th here in Massachusetts, and it's a separate application that you have to fill out. And if you get approved for that, you will also be entitled to the additional $600 that you would get on top of your unemployment benefit. And that is from the weeks of April 20th, 2020 to July 25th, 2020. You would get $600 per week that you are unemployed. And the same eligibility requirements apply. You have to have valid work authorization, you have to certify, etc. For people who are working, so we get a lot of questions about people who are teleworking. So you are not entitled to unemployment benefits if you are working remotely from home. So if you are working full-time at your job and then you're asked to work full-time from home, you're not entitled to unemployment benefits. However, if you were working full-time at your job on site and you were asked to work part-time from home and you're working less hours, you could be in partial unemployment and you could be entitled to unemployment benefits then. So the idea is that if you're making less money than you usually would, if you're getting paid for less hours than you normally were being paid when you were working on site, then there might be a potential claim for you there. You're not entitled to unemployment benefits if you're getting other paid leave. So if you're getting paid sick leave, if you're getting paid admin leave, if you're at home, you're not working, but your employer is providing you some sort of paid leave, you would not be entitled to unemployment benefits then. And so just keeping that in mind so that you don't want to file a claim and then be approved for unemployment benefits wrongly and then later have to be charged with an overpayment, because that would be a lot of money that you'd have to pay back. So just assessing your eligibility yourself based on general guidance. The MassGov website has really good guidance that offers general frequently asked questions. DUA has guidance on their website as well. But if you have specific questions about your specific matter, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a lot of advocates who are working round the clock to answer these questions. We know that this is a very important time for people to have questions about unemployment benefits, and things are changing rapidly. The other thing is that, once an appeal happens, people don't really know how that process works. So we offer that support as well. So don't be shy about reaching out to us specifically if you have questions that pertain to your specific situation. We do, like I said, we are helping people apply for unemployment benefits from the outset. We are helping people with appeals, and then we're providing general advice for people who have questions about their specific case. So don't be shy to reach out to us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Claudia. Now we have a few minutes to answer your questions, so feel free to chat them in the, text them in the group chat. If you have already submitted a few of your questions, we have those and we're gonna read them out so that Jane and Claudia can answer them. And for those of you, again, who are just joining us, if you haven't submitted your questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll answer them. Jane and Claudia will answer them for you. So I'm gonna start reading off some questions that we've received. What should I do if I lost income because of COVID-19 and I can't pay my rent?
So I'll just provide some clarity about people who are having trouble paying rent because of COVID-19. Again, the new law protects against late fees in credit reporting. Ultimately, your rent is going to be due, and the landlord can file a case if it's not paid once the crisis is over. So a couple of tips: if you lost income because of wages, apply for unemployment, just like Claudia said. The other thing that you can do is apply for financial assistance through a program called RAFT, which is Residential Assistance for Families in Transition. That money is accessed through an application at Wayfinders, which some of you may be familiar with that agency. And that can be by phone or online through their website. And there's expanded money because of COVID-19 for RAFT. In terms of the paperwork to give to your landlord, you need to document to your landlord to get the late fee protections that you suffered a financial or are suffering a financial hardship because of COVID-19. And that because of this, you cannot afford to pay your rent. You can do that just through a letter to the landlord, but the government has also created a form that's available online that will guide you through certain information that would be helpful. Sarita is going to post a link to that form, but if you Google COVID-19 hardship, residential tenant, those names, those words, that form should pop up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jane. If I can't pay my mortgage now, do I still need to pay?
So again, the legal obligation to pay is still in effect. But if you cannot pay, you can reach out directly to your bank, to your lender, to the entity that services your loans, and request a forbearance, meaning a pause on your mortgage payments. And if they approve that, right, if they approve that the need is due to COVID-19, you can have 6 months where the payments are paused, and they're just, the amount of those payments are added on to the overall balance of your mortgage. But you should be in direct communication with your lender to make sure that you are accessing those protections.
Do I have to say I'm looking for a job if I can't go out and look? How is that documented?
Yeah, so looking for a job under DUA guidance, it's really looking on job boards, being on the internet, talking to friends who might have who might know where there are job postings. You don't have to go out and physically look for a job. Doing it from your home, if you're able to, ought to suffice. The other thing I was gonna say, and I completely forgot to mention this, which I think is important. The reasons why somebody could be eligible for unemployment in this time are if you have been laid off as a result of COVID-19, if you've lost hours as a result of COVID-19, if you've been ordered quarantine by a medical professional or somebody at your job, like your employer, if you have COVID-19 or symptoms and are staying home, if you're taking care of somebody who had COVID-19 or symptoms, all of these reasons would entitle you to unemployment benefits as a result of COVID-19. And the other thing that I think is important to mention, and I don't know if somebody will have this question, but for those who have immigration questions or have a work permit, are in some sort of legal status that's not a permanent resident or citizen, the unemployment benefits do not count against the public charge, and they do not count towards any sort of, they're not going to affect your immigration status at all. So we do get a lot of questions where people are fearful to apply for unemployment benefits because they think it might count against them, but that's not an issue at all.
Do you have to pay unemployment back at some point?
No. So when you apply for unemployment benefits, you'll get a tax questionnaire. Well, that'll ask you how you want taxes taken out. So just like any wages that you would get from your employer, this is taxable income that you're paying taxes on, and you're not going to have to pay that back unless DUA for some reason realizes that you weren't supposed to be getting unemployment benefits to begin with. They might charge you with an overpayment, and that's a separate issue. But if you're eligible for unemployment benefits and you're receiving them, that's just like any other income that is taxed, and you're not going to have to pay that back.
What happens if an eviction is already filled pre-COVID-19?
So there may be people who were already in housing court on an eviction case when the moratorium went into effect. And your eviction case could have been at different stages. So it could be that you've already been to court and signed an agreement agreeing to move out. It could be that you had a case filed, but you never had gone to court and hadn't seen a judge yet, or hadn't seen a mediator to try to resolve your case. So for any case that was sitting in the courthouse, right, filed in the courthouse, but had not yet finished, those cases are paused, right? They're paused as long as the moratorium is in effect, meaning they cannot go forward during this time period. If a landlord believes that an eviction that was already filed would fit the definition of an essential eviction under the moratorium law, meaning that you or a member of your household or another tenant is doing something that puts the health and safety of others at risk, the landlord can file something with the housing court explaining that there is an ongoing current safety risk, and ask the court to move your case forward, to activate the case. And if the judge who reviews that paperwork believes that there's an ongoing public health emergency, then your case could be reactivated to go in front of a judge or to attempt a mediation or conversation about resolving the case. If that happens, you will get notice. You will likely get a notice in the mail. If the court has your phone number, they will likely call you. It's really important if you are expecting, or if you do have a case in court, that you're regularly checking your mail, because that is the main reason, the main method for notifying you if something's happening in your eviction case. If your case has been paused, once the moratorium is over, you will then get a notice of when your court case is going to go forward. It will be slow because there's a lot of cases on hold. There are a lot of cases being paused, and the courts are going to open up slowly. But be patient with the court. You can call if you have questions. You can check your case online at masscourts.org, put in your case information, or just wait for that notice in the mail.
If I was quarantined because I tested positive for COVID due to exposure as an EMT, lost hours, but I'm back at work, now is there any way I can recover that pay? And should I be receiving hazard pay now that I'm back to work?
If you were quarantined and you weren't receiving pay, you would have to look at whether your employer offers sick leave and whether your employer offers paid sick leave. Well, let me backtrack. All employers should offer sick leave, but depending on the number of employees in our state that an employer has, they could be required to pay sick leave or not. So the threshold number is 11 employees. If an employer has more than 11 employees at the workplace, then they're required to offer paid sick leave, and that's usually 40 hours of paid sick leave a year here in Massachusetts. Depending on how long you are quarantined for, how much sick leave that individual has, etc., it would determine whether or not you would have sick leave available to you, and whether or not that would be paid or not, depending on the number of employees that were there. So you definitely want to figure that out. And then in regard to hazard pay, there is no, there is some hazard pay, but it depends on the employees and it depends on the employer. And so some employers have negotiated hazard pay as a result of bargaining agreements, but to the extent that there's hazard pay offered to all employees across the state who are essential workers, that's not the case right now. So for your case individually, for that individual, it would be good for them if they were curious or they felt like I had enough sick time, I didn't get paid while I was out on quarantine, I want to talk to a lawyer. That would be a good thing to do, to reach out to legal aid and apply for a consultation.
My child has been home since the school has been closed and sometimes can get a little rowdy while playing his games. Does my landlord have the right to evict me? I have never been late with payment and recently got a nasty phone call from a lawyer after I received a 30-day notice to quit.
So I imagine that we're all getting a little rowdy in our homes right now during this COVID-19 time period. So based on those facts, I would say that that shouldn't qualify as an eviction that could go forward. The evictions that are supposed to go forward are really supposed to be those where there's a threat to people's, health and safety. And if there are disagreements going on between tenants, this is a time to have communication and figure out ways to come to some solutions. If you are a tenant that's receiving eviction letters right now, or if you're experiencing something that feels like harassment from a landlord or a property manager, I would encourage you to reach out to our office and apply, and we can have an attorney advise you or perhaps represent you and help you navigate the trouble that you're having with regard to your housing. But really, people being kind of disturbed by noise shouldn't rise to the level of an urgent health and safety risk.
Can I file for unemployment if I don't file taxes?
It depends, which is usually a very common answer you'll get from a lawyer, but it depends on how you're being paid. If you're not filing taxes because you're getting paid in cash, it would be hard for the Department of Unemployment Assistance to ascertain what your minimum wage is to see if you're eligible to receive unemployment benefits. However, you can apply for unemployment benefits even if you don't file taxes, as long as you're able and available to work and you have valid work authorization. So if you're just, if you have valid work authorization and you're just getting paid in cash and that's the reason why you're not filing taxes, you're just gonna need to be able to show the Department of Unemployment Assistance what your wages are, and so they can make that determination whether or not you'll be eligible for unemployment benefits. But the only reasons you wouldn't be able to apply is if you don't have valid work authorization or you're not able and available to work. Otherwise, you should be able to apply.
Do I need to provide landlord information if I'm laid off?
Is the question whether the person needs to provide landlord information to the Department of Unemployment Assistance?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, I don't know. If you're laid off, typically what'll happen is the Department of Unemployment Assistance will make a determination based on two things. They'll decide whether you quit or you were fired. And so they'll make that assessment based on, the facts of your case, of your individual matter. And if you were, furloughed or you were asked to stay home because of COVID-19, then they'll make an assessment that you're eligible. If your employer says that you quit, that you say that you quit because you felt like there was a health risk for you to go into work because of COVID-19, then more than likely the Department of Unemployment Assistance will find that you are eligible. And so usually the DOA isn't going to ask for secondary information or verifications outside of what's going on with your employer. They're not going to ask for anything from a landlord or any other entity that has nothing to do with your employment.
So how long can I get benefits for?
You can get benefits for, in a typical benefit year, people are entitled to unemployment benefits for 26 weeks. They are entitled to an additional 13 or an additional weeks if they're engaging in what's called Section 30 benefits. If they're applying for a certification or going to school for a different profession, they can extend their benefits in normal circumstances. As a result of the CARES Act package, people are now entitled to an additional 13 weeks, so 39 weeks of unemployment benefits beyond the 26 weeks in a benefit year up until December of 2020.
Okay, and I think we have a few more minutes for more questions. So please don't hesitate to just share your questions in the chat. Here's one more question for Jane. What should I do if I need an emergency order from the housing court?
So if you have an emergency where you need the assistance of the housing court, the easiest first step is to make a phone call to the court, because you cannot physically go to the courthouse. So you will call up the clerk's office, you will explain what your situation is, and they will help you figure out the next steps, which could involve setting up a mediation with someone who works for the court so that you and your landlord will have a conversation on the phone with someone who works from the court to see if they can help you resolve the problem. Or you'll have a time to speak on the phone with the judge and your landlord present. If there's any evidence that you want the court to look at, the method right now, and the clerks will help you do this, is to email that information into the housing court before you have your phone conversation, so that the judge can see any evidence that you would like the judge to look at, like letters, photographs, or anything of that nature. But the first step at this point during the moratorium, or at least during the court closure, right, which is at least through the end of this month, is to make that phone call. There's another question that came in about what to do if a landlord is harassing someone or harassing a tenant for payment. If you can't make your payments because of COVID-19, again, get that verification to the landlord. You can tell the landlord about the law and ask them to stop. You can reach out to community legal aid. And if the harassment is of a nature that it really is interrupting the livability of your apartment and severely impacting your life, that is something that you could ask the court to intervene with, right? And ask the court to tell the landlord to stop doing that.
Okay, looks like we're running out of time for more questions. Jane and Claudia, thank you both for your presentations and thank you for answering our questions. Would you like to wrap it up and share your resources available?
Sure. So I think that there are going to be some slides that are posted at the end of this session so that people can see them written down. But certainly people should remember that they can visit communitylegal.org, and there's a lot of information about how to access our office, but also just about the law, right? Some questions and answers there about the law. The other really good source of legal information that's easy to access is masslegalhelp.org. And there's a variety of legal information about housing, unemployment, family law, public benefits. So I would encourage people to visit those resources.
Yeah, I would also add that we, specifically for unemployment benefits, we recognize the difficulty in the systems. And so if people are having any difficulty applying or reaching somebody at DUA, to please reach out to us. We want to really keep track of that. We're working closely with legislators and other advocacy groups to make sure that the unemployment system is accessible to people. And so for that reason, we're helping people apply initially for unemployment benefits if they're having a hard time. We have advocates who speak Spanish, we have support system who speak Spanish, and we have translation services. So advocacy is not accessibility is not an issue at our agency. And so we definitely encourage people to reach out to us if they have questions, if they're having a hard time, because we know right now is a hard and scary time for folks, and we want to help the community as best as we can to alleviate concerns or obstacles if we can. So thanks again for attending the webinar and listening to our presentations. We're always here to help the community, so thank you.
Great, thank you, Jane and Claudia. As we mentioned, we're going to show a slide of resources that they mentioned a few, and we're going to share a few more. So we're going to see when it comes up on the slide. We have Arise for Social Justice. You can visit their website or their Facebook page. So there are the links right there for Springfield Healthy Homes website and for 413 Cares. Their Facebook and their website. We'll also be sharing the link of the presentation so you can share this video on with your friends. You can find it on Focus Springfield on their website at focusspringfield.com/housing. So if you have any questions, any more questions that you'd like addressed, feel free to email me, Shirley Rodriguez at srodriguez, SRODRIGUEZ at the public health, excuse me, let me say that again. No, duh, it's at publichealthwm.org. So once you submit your questions to me, we'll have them answered and I'll get them to you straight away. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for our partners, Focus Springfield, for making this possible. Thank you to our presenters and our partners. Stay well and remember, 6 feet away.